Peter Moores has joined us. Nottinghamshire were crowned, obviously, champions of the county championship for the first time since 2010 after winning the title this season. And as you will all know by now, Peter Moores becomes the first man to win the county championship with three different counties. Um, Brilliant stuff, Morsey. I really appreciate your time. We've been hounding you, been on your tail, and unable to pin you down for 2 weeks now. But I know that everyone else has wanted to speak to you, and you probably wanted a bit of time just to reflect on what's been a fabulous season, fabulous achievement. I mean, and the planning that went into it from 2 or 3 years ago, the way you built the squad must be deeply satisfying. Hopefully, the feeling hasn't worn off yet.
No, it was great fun actually. I mean, I've been away actually. I did 2 weeks in Dallas in a T10 tournament in the modern world of cricket, flying all over the place. So I haven't been back long. But yeah, it was brilliant fun because you're right, we'd built a team really. So I think winning the second division in 22 was that team that had started quite a long way back under Steve Mullaney as captain. And then it moved on to Haas. And we'd been through, like always with those sort of journeys with teams, you go through your tough times first, which obviously molds a team. So you normally have to go a period where you're catching a lot of stick off people because you're playing younger players or you're playing different sorts of players and they're finding their feet. And you've got to try and ride through that. And then eventually, hopefully, you come out and you start to build into a team that can start to win. And that's what happened. You need things to fall your way. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, it was an exciting finish, that's for sure.
Mosey, you mentioned Stephen Mullaney there, who was an excellent captain for you, and you've gone with obviously Hassim, who has had a troubling time, as in moving counties, been in England, been out of England, been back in England, but his leadership qualities were unbelievable this season. I mean, were you surprised that he was that type of leader to go and win the championship? And is that potentially, could it get him back into sort of the England fold?
What I think, Harmy, is his second year captaincy. Like a lot of what we do at our place, and we try and do it everywhere, and I think that's what coaching is about, is trying to help people get better, really. His first year as captain, I would say, tactically was good on the field because he's tactically, I think you've seen some of those decisions he's made this year. But off the field, I don't know if he quite understood what captaincy was. And you've had some great captains in your time as a player. That off-field stuff's really important, isn't it? How you manage players before you actually get on the park is crucial. Yeah. What I think he got right this year was, I think he got the players together. There was a connection between them off the field that then carried on. So when he was on the field, the decisions he made, I think the lads were in the right headspace to deliver them. And he made some great decisions, certainly towards the end. I mean, the Liam Patterson-White over in that Surrey Championship game was inspired. There's no doubt about that. Getting the key wicket. But just before then, he'd taken Josh Tongue off after just one over and swapped him round, which also was a very good decision. So he had a really good year. But his connection to the players off the field, I think, was as important as the one on it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we do a county cricket show, and I remember doing the county cricket show leading into that Surrey game. And there was a lot of talk about Surrey going for the fourth title and this, that, and the other. And it's like, hold on, there's a lad playing for Notts here. I know what it's like because he's very similar to me. He's on a roll. They've just won. He's won some big games for England, and that's Josh Tongue. And at the Oval, he could be the difference, and he was the difference for you in that game when you mopped the tail up at Surrey. But I mean, he's had an unbelievable year. And I think personally, he's possibly a shoo-in for England's first of 11. But his development hasn't been straightforward. How have you managed to sort of manage him along with the ECB and get him to be such a success for not just England, but for Notts as well? Because he's been a real spearhead.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable. I think to win games of 4-day cricket, it's a mixture, isn't it? You need a really good collective group of players, and we got wins from lots of different players, but you need those people that accelerate the game, and often it's a spinner or pace, and Josh is one of those sort of players. He makes a difference. So when we went into that Surrey game, in fact, we went into the last 3 games, I'd watched him bowl in the 2 days build up to those games and thinking, well, if we keep this lad on the park and he keeps bowling the way he is, he'd bowled at Haas Haas in a net in the middle on the one-day pitch. Actually, they've been at our place a couple of days before, and Haas walked out and he nicked him off a couple of times. And Haas has been unbelievable this season. He's played so well on all surfaces. And I said to him, "Did that look and feel as quick and as good as it was?" And he said, "Yeah, it was so awkward to face because he gets that angle, doesn't he? Slightly past the vertical, so it looks like it's always coming in. It holds up, and it's good pace." So that was fun. We knew we had an ace really if we got him going. I give a lot of credit to this one to Josh, because you should always give the credit to the player because he's been through it, and two to Shiny. Kev Shiny is a bowling coach, and also linked with England because he's been with Neil Killeen. That link between those two players and the relationship between everybody's really worked. And it doesn't always work as smooth as that, but on this occasion it has. And the way I deal with those style of players is that we assume we haven't got them all the time. Then if they're century contracted, if you get them, it's a bonus. And our job's to look after them, really, to make sure that we're doing everything we can for them to play well for England before anything else, probably, because that's the dream of every player. With that, I think you get a huge respect from the player. So when he's on the park for you, he gives everything. And that's exactly what Tongi did. But Shiny, I think, has been through a lot through his career. He's a classic coach for me, who's maybe at times started off a bit too technical, but now has been around the block long enough, knows exactly the keys to helping players perform, and allows the player himself to lead it. But he dovetails in with that great.
Peter, we spoke to Paul Farbrace a couple of minutes ago, and he said that one of the best things that he was told was to make sure that he could find your pause button. He said because your enthusiasm was so effervescent that he was worried that you'd burn out. And I suppose this is a silly question, really, because I guess it's just an organic thing. I mean, I was going to say, like, how do you keep that enthusiasm? But I suppose if it's just there, I mean, it's not like being a aging fast bowler like Harmy and you struggle to get out of bed in the morning. I suppose, if you've got it, you've got it, and it just doesn't run out.
Well, so far it hasn't run out. So if it did, I think I'd have to stop. Honestly, I love it. I've never felt like work for me. My drive has always been the same. Since I started coaching, I love trying to help people get better. I always have done. Why it connects with me so much, I don't know. I think there's a huge give back, and the longer you do it, the more you realise, because you connect with players. Sometimes a player contacts you. I got a text from a player who I coached 30 years ago the other day, and that to me it's brilliant in many ways, because I think when you first start coaching a player, it's a player coach, and eventually you become friends, mates, really, as it goes through and you go through something. So I've loved the whole thing, and in some ways I think you need to learn. I think I've learned, and Harmy came across me at different stages. You've learned to, in some ways, go at the pace of the player. And I think to start with, my enthusiasm probably pushed too hard at times for people, because you got excited that they could be. Coaching's about seeing what could be, not what is. So if you see what could be and you get too excited about it, you don't give the player time to catch up and go with it. So I think that takes a bit of getting used to. I think now I'm a bit older and hopefully a bit wiser. You still make your cock-ups, but you go with it, and you try and let everybody else get on board as well, all your other coaches, to go with that, and then hopefully try and let players improve, because that to me is our game. Our game, certainly at county level, domestic level, it's about helping players at all ages suddenly move again. And some of our biggest movers have been slightly older players who've actually gone again, mid-20s players who've suddenly improved and they've moved quickly. And then you get a huge result. So that to me is the exciting bit, because you don't quite know then when a player starts to get better, when he's going to stop.
I mean, not to get some stick, because they sign a lot of players, Manners, but they sign a lot of players who are young players and development players. And you're right, I've worked with Peter a couple of times in different stages of both our careers. And I've always said, and I'm not just saying it because you're on our program, but if I had a young player and I wanted him to get better, I'd send him to Peter Moores. And if that young player didn't get better, it's the young player's fault, because Peter will give him everything you get. So when Notts get talked about in signing players from 2 or 3 from Worcester. Josh Tongue and came. Ben Duckett came from Northampton. I mean, you at Nottingham, you develop players. You might sign these younger players, but boy, like you said, they go again when they get a bit older. How fulfilling is it when you see somebody like Ben Duckett, you see Josh Tongue, who have come to make themselves better. Ben Duckett was dropped by England, and not many people, you know this more than anybody, Peter, when young players sometimes get discarded. Hassim Hamid get discarded too young, and the better players when they're 26, 27. But how fulfilling is it when you're a coach of a player who gets another chance? And boy, does he take it, because looking at something like Ben Duckett, he's took that chance.
Yeah, I mean, when Ben got in the Test Match Team of the Year, that is like one of those moments, and it's all for him. It's his. But there's a bit of reflected glory we'll all take from that, because we've all had we've had a moment to help him. But we made when I came to Notts, I remember saying to Mick, if we're going to sign people, let's try and sign young, if we can, often second division players, to try and give them a chance to get going. Ben Duckett, Joe Clark. That's the sort of type player we signed, and we've seen a lot of them go on and do great for us. But at the same time, we wanted to develop our own system. So we developed our own system as well. And we've now seen that takes quite a long time. So we changed it in 17 when I first started head coaching, and we changed it quite a lot. And we've seen people like Freddie McCann, Farn Ahmed come into this team this year and do brilliantly. Liam Patterson-White. So we've seen our own come through as well. And I think probably one of the things, so we run it like a skill factory. The lads come in and we try and get them better, and the winning is a byproduct of getting players better, because that's the way our sport works. Individual sport in a team game. That's just the way cricket is. And interestingly, I take a lot of pride that I think we've got 12 or 13 lads who've been through our system and now playing at other counties. So though we took 3 from Worcester, Jake Libby and Fateh Singh have now been taken by Worcester from us, because we couldn't get him into our team. Luke Wood is playing at Lancashire. Billy Root is playing at Glamorgan. Jack Blatherwick's playing at Lancashire. They're all lads who come through our system. So there's 12 or 13 lads out there now playing first-class cricket. Now, I think that's the sign of a strong system, because it's producing players. They can't all get in the first team. So you've got to, I think, this is where me and Mick see the same thing. If somebody we can't get them in, we'll let them go, because I've got a son who plays, of which I have caught plenty of stick for it at different times, of which you have to sort of like just take it, I suppose, knowing that it's untrue, and you're probably harder on your own son than anybody else. But the idea being that I'd say to any player that I'll give you, if I'm going to try and create opportunities, I've got to do it as though it's fair. That's what I'd want for Tom. So I'd want it for you. Who wants to be stuck in a second team? Nobody.
Yeah.
Because you need to play. And there's a certain age, I'll say to a player, my dad advice is to stay. Don't go anywhere yet, because you're young. You will move on our staff. For other lads, I might say, we had Matt Milnes who went to Kent, and we offered him a 3-year contract. And Matt said to me, because I always say, I'll give you my dad advice if you want it, as well as my head coach's advice. My head coach advice was to stay. My dad advice was, it might be time to move if you want to play in all formats. Because actually, and that's what happened for in Kent, he went on a Lions trip. So in some ways, I'm happy with that. He's still our man. He might come back. Brett Hunt is a guy that came back. That's fine. That's our game, because our job is really to help players get better. And our responsibility to the members and to the club is to try and win, because they want us to win, but not at the sacrifice, I don't think, of some of the principles of the game, which is helping people get better to move it on.
Brett, you mentioned Brett Hutton. He had a fantastic year this year. And I mean, you talk about the members and the county members. And actually, I told Manners about your nephew when he was 14, play for Cheshire, when I watched him. And I said, there's another more special talent going there, and he's going all right at Lancashire. So I'm sure your uncle's advice is going quite well. But the members, Mosey, they're hard. I mean, they're hard to please, because I was going to ask you, as a coach, because of the experience you've gone through, is it easier for somebody who has been experienced to sort of have that plan you've got, but also know that it might sometimes take a step back? It might hit a bump in the road. But the process that you and Mick have sorted, how fulfilling is that now when because the members are quite tough at a lot of counties because they want instant success?
Yeah, they are, and you're continually trying to people have stopped enjoying watching people develop a little bit, which is a real shame, because that's part of the, I think when I played, the members quite enjoyed watching a young player come in at batting sometimes 7 and 8, and he wasn't always doing as well, but they'd watch him come in and later on become, certainly in red ball cricket, it takes time sometimes a batter to find your feet. Now, for some players, it's always been the same. The real absolute cream of the crop can often come in and they can move on really fast, as we've seen recently with some players like Jamie Smith in the England team. But other players need a bit of time, and you've got to protect them, because I think Neil said before that there's that point when a player at 21, 22 can't work it out. You let him go, but actually if you held on to him for 2 or 3 more years, he would make it, and he'd suddenly work out in his head how to play the red ball game, which is quite a tough thing to organise in your head sometimes. So it's a bit of both. But actually, to me, the whole idea for Championship cricket is this creating opportunity for people to have a go, because I often say to our players, listen, I'm not the judge anymore. Nobody's the judge. The members aren't really the judge. The game's the judge. If you get wickets and runs, you're a player. And if you don't get wickets and runs, unfortunately, you're not a player. And I hope we never forget that in development when you're working with a batter or a bowler. So if you're a red ball bowler, I say to a lot of, well, if you can't put the ball on off stump, top of, around, a lot in England, you're not going to be getting wickets. And you want to bowl quick, maybe, whatever, but you've still got at some point get to that point. And you can't get round it. It's like a golfer hits it miles but can't hit it straight. You've got to at some point find a way of doing that. Our job's really to help them, if we can, do that with their talent. And Ben Duckett is a brilliant example as a batter who all he did, he knew all the notes to play. He just didn't always play them in the right order. And now he plays in the right order. And it's box office to watch.
It certainly is. Peter, we're massively grateful for your time. So this is the last one before we let you go. What lesser spoken about aspect of the Ashes might decide the result or contribute towards deciding the result? What are we all missing? What have you spotted? And also, how was coaching T10 in Texas or Dallas?
Well, I'll do the T10 first. Everything in Dallas is big, I think, from what I remember. So it was different. And actually, in some ways, because we won the championship, all felt like it came around a bit quick. But actually, I linked up with, and it came through somebody I coached a lot in Samit Patel, who's been around the traps. Sam was captain of the team, so I went there. And like always around cricket, you get involved, you meet a new set of people, you have a great time. In fact, we lost in the final to Paul Nixon's team, actually, so it was great. I'd spent a couple of weeks with Nick, who I've hardly seen for a bit, actually, because he's been out of the county scene. So that was great. So generally, it was good fun. Good fun. And I'd never been to the US cricket. So I was interested to see, and there's a lot of people who play cricket in the US, which I knew but didn't quite know. So I know a little bit more about it now. They're mad keen on it, like a lot of people. It's not baseball and it's not NFL, but it has a place, I think. So yeah, it was good fun. On the Ashes, I think the Ashes for me, I think there's such an emphasis for me on the attitude England go with. And I think this front-footedness they've got works, providing it's going to be tested out that it's not bravado, that they can actually go in and back it up. Because I think if they can, I look back to that 10-11 series when brilliantly planned by, I think, Strauss, who was in charge, and Andy. And the way England played, but they played on the front foot. They actually, it's not a case of bullying an Australian, but people like Brodie, Graham Swan, those sort of type players really fronted up against people. And I think that was significant in that Ashes series, the way England went on the front foot and wanted to go toe to toe, because I think ultimately that's when you win and lose big games.